So let's talk a little more detailed version in the CSS selector. All right. So we have a nested or descendant selector. All right. What is this? So sometimes your element is buried deep inside another container. Yeah. Maybe it's a division tag, it can be a section, it can be a card layout. Okay. So with descendant selectors, you can target elements that are nested under a specific parent. Okay. So you just separate the selector with a space and no slashes, no XPath headache. How do you do that? So let's head back to my page. So in here, I am going to use this particular field. So let's first inspect this. So this inspects and it shows me that my field is inside a division tag, and inside this division tag I have what the input fields which are of type radio. Okay, so they are radio buttons, right? Now what I want to do here is I have to give a reference to Selenium saying you skip all of the elements. I don't want you to go through all of the element to find my radio button. Instead, go to a division tag which has these radio buttons. There's a separate section. You go to that section and inside that section find this button for me. So how you are going to do that? So first thing is we need to figure out what is the division tag that we are going to target. So if you come here, so this is a division tag that I am using here. What is the name of it? It says field group block. So what I am going to do now is I go here, I'll say again driver dot find element by, and in this what I am going to say, what I have copied is the, what is that, is the class name. This name that I just copied, field group block, this is the class name. Now what I want to do is I want to specify to Selenium that you have to hit this particular class, right? And this particular class is inside what tag? It's inside a division tag. So I said division dot this particular field, right? Now inside this block or inside this division tag, what I want to target, inside this I want to target another tag which is of type input. Click on this radio button, right? And this is what, again, a HTML tag of type radio. If I have this particular division class which has field and group block, right? In a bigger project, your approach should be to have a reference of each of those classes, right? You can also do it using say just one class. It might work, but for a longer run or for better readability, you should have all the class names written here with dot references, okay, separated by dot. So instead of space, dot. And the second thing with working with radio buttons is, we haven't talked about it, but I'm just, for the sake of this example, I'm telling you, radio buttons are usually clubbed with a label to it. Okay, so you cannot directly click on a radio button, but you should click instead on the label of that particular radio button. So for this to work, we need to do a modification here. Instead of clicking this input, we are going to click on the label, and this label will always be tagged to a particular radio button. So if you see here, it says label for lang python, and lang python is the ID of this particular input box or the radio button, right? So what I am going to say, I am going to say in my label, I am going to use this particular property of label. So instead of input, I am going to write here label, and I'm going to use an attribute of it. What attribute? It says for, and I'll say, I'll paste the property and I'll close the bracket. All right. So this is my new locator if I want to click on my radio button. So instead of clicking the radio button, we have to click on the label. With the classes, you have to add all the classes separated by a dot here, right? Let's see if this works. So it goes here. Did it click? No. What error? What is the error this time? It says no such element exception. Now we didn't check this in our browser, right? Let's do that now. So what is the error? So it's not able to locate here if you see it correctly, right? Now what is the error? Okay, so the error is nothing but a spelling mistake. Label, label, right? Let's run this again and hopefully this should work, right? So it clicked on my Python checkbox as well. So what we did here is we specified a particular element, and inside that element I wanted to click on an child element, right? So moving on, we have starts with, ends with, and contains selector. Okay, now the difference between these are is the way of how you are going to write the attribute value. So we saw this, we have a tag name. With that tag name, I'm going to use an attribute of that tag, and in that attribute, if I give a caret or say the power sign, so it's going to match the attribute that starts with a certain value that you are entering here. So let's take an example for all the three of it, right? And then we'll see. They're also called as dynamic attributing. Okay. Now try to build an example for all three of it, right? So this is my application here. Now what we are doing here is I'm using the username here. I'm trying to figure out a label which starts with user, and I don't care what is the next word in it. Okay, so let's write a CSS locator for it. So I'll say driver dot find element by CSS selector, and I'll say I want this tag, I want this input tag because this is an input tag for me, right? So if I go here, so this is an input tag for me, and inside this what I'm trying to do, let's use the name property this time. So the name is user underscore name underscore main. So I'm going to give a reference of this as input, and I'll say name, and it should start with user, right? And in this I'll say send keys starts with user. Okay, and similarly I'll build these for ends with as well. I'll again inspect. Again, there is a name attached to it. It says display name, so I'll say it should end with name. So in this one I'm just going to reuse this, ends with, and instead of this symbol I'll give a dollar here, and I'll say what was the value that I was looking, name, right? Let's say name. So for contains with, I'm going to go here on my CSS on my feedback field, and I'll do an inspect here. It takes me here. So instead of ID, I'm going to use the placeholder value, and I'll just put feedback here, right? Let me go back to my script. So I'll use the same thing. Name will again change to placeholder. All right. And this one will become star. Name will change to feedback. Is a feedback. Clear until here? Let's run this. So it opens my application. Oh, this is a silly mistake. Instead of these should be all caps always, right? Let's run it again. Now what happened? It again threw some error. No such element exception. Which one? With placeholder feedback. It's not able to locate this. Let's debug why is this happening. But before that, did it enter these two fields? Yes. Starts with user, ends with user, right? So this is sorted. Now we are stuck here. It says it's not able to figure out my field. So let's take this CSS, go back and try to search it here. What happens here? It's not able to figure out why. It's because I am trying to search for an input, but this is not an input. This is a text area, right? Now, if I give it as text area, it's trying to figure this out. Now, this should work for me. Instead of import, right, text area. All right, right. So we also have nested selectors. We just saw a type of it when we were doing a descendant selector. So you can take a parent reference and go hit the child element. We had seen this example earlier. All right. And then there is a direct child selector, which helps you to directly select a particular, say you are going to hit a particular tag or you are going to hit a particular class using a greater than symbol, right? So a typical example of it would be, you'll say by CSS selector, and instead of this you are going to write here forms, because what I'll show you what I'm trying to do is I have a form here, right? So this is my form, and inside this I have fields, inside which I have field as individual field. So I'm just trying to pull up the field property. Okay, so I can directly use it, but for the sake of demoing this example, I am using this reference. So I'm just going to say forms, and inside forms just give me all fields, and then I'm going to say fields is equals to this, and I'll just print it. Print. What I am trying to do here is I'm using a form reference. Inside this I'm pointing to field, inside this it goes to field, and those field will give me a list of field. So I just want a count of it. So since it's a list object, I'll just say length of my list, right? And if I run this, it should give me the length of those fields or the count of the field, right? Let this execute for now, and then if I go back, yeah, so it gives me 12 here, which is nothing but the length of the field. All right.